Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a late night insight on a brand that has never been featured on my channel before. I own 0 bottles from the brand, and honestly I don't hear very much talk about this house, and from this I can tell you there should be some talk on the house. The house is named Jazeel, J-A-Z-E-E-L, and if I want my little fragrance channel in a small corner of Fragcom to be kind of an encyclopedia of a lot of different perfumes, where people can come to and see if I've done a review on and what my thoughts are. That is going to take quick hit videos late at night sometimes where all I have to work with is a sample. So for everyone who has very kindly sent me fragrances they would like for me to talk about, but I have not, or you've never seen them in my collection, thank you very much. This was sent by one of my fragrance god people, and it's called Jazeel is the house, and the fragrance we're going to talk about today is called Ghala, G-H-A-L-A, Ghala. Now, everything about Jazeel, according to Javoy, says Jazeel Perfumes is a luxury house founded in 2018 by Ali Alzaabi. Ali Alzaabi. He is the owner and perfumer, according to the write-up. His deep emotional connection with perfumes from early in life made him want to fulfill the need for exclusive and genuine Oriental perfumes that would appeal to both men and women alike. These exotic Jazeel perfumes are a rare confluence of tradition and modernity. They evoke your aristocracy and sheer richness of spirit. Your heart and soul soar on the fragrance of well-being. Your entire being floats out of this world on a journey into the limelight. Your self-esteem blossoms. Your thoughts and actions evolve to a higher plane. You harmonize with nature and you view love in an entirely new light. Ali's was a passionate odyssey to create his exquisite love collection of Oriental perfumes. Poet Nizar Kibani's thoughts inspired Ali through his famous works such as, "My lover asked me, what's the difference between the sky and me? I replied, the difference, my love, when you smile, I forget about the sky." Jazeel Perfume House became the creators of luxury scent, offering only the most unique fragrances that every man and woman of discernment and sophistication would covet. Made with the highest quality natural and rare spices and other finest essences personally sourced by Ali Alzaabi from the Far East and across the world. They are of consistently superior quality and leave an unforgettable impression. Ali, along with his extremely talented research team, is continually working to develop new sensual fragrance blends to spread love through the world. Let our fragrances raise your energy and happiness levels as they charm all of those graceful and noble personalities around you. Okay, so hell of a first write-up, I must admit. And Ghala came out in, honestly, I don't know. I think it came out maybe the same year that the brand was released. No, 2019 is what Fragrantica says. Parfumo has no year, so we'll go with Fragrantica. The note listings, according to Parfumo, are Indian Rose Absolute, Turkish Rose, Indian Oud in the top, with a heart of ambergris, frankincense, and cedarwood, with a base of Indian Oud, patchouli, sandalwood, and vetiver. Now, according to Lucky Scent, though, this has a very rare Kalakasi Oud note, which we'll talk a little bit about. Kalakasi. And the scoop, according to Lucky Scent, says, Ghala is a mystical love poem. When your soul unites with another in the indiscernible dimensions of a celestial plane. Celestial came up in my Faint Woman review. Maybe there is fate to all of this. Of existence where all is possible. Incredibly rare Kalakasi Oud and Rose Absolute express an emotion that cannot be put into words. Magical essences of ambergris, frankincense, and cedarwood cast their own enchantment. Sandalwood, patchouli, vetiver, and Indian Oud seal the lover's bond for all eternity. 100 mils is $425, so a little high. Now, I have to say, I have heard of this house before, but I've never smelled it before this very kind decant found its way to me. And I have to say, the bottle that it comes in doesn't look like a $425 bottle to me. The bottle reminds me of something Lattafa or Armaf might put out. I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of people overlook this house. The juice inside is good. I can tell you that. The juice is good. So it's a little bit of a contradiction, because if you go read comments on this, it's funny, like on Parfumo, the very first comment, the person says, simply intolerable. Maybe one of the worst fragrances, most unpleasant fragrances I've ever tested. That's obviously someone who is not familiar with oud or Indian oud. If you have any experience with oud, if you've been following my channel, you will not feel the way that that first commenter on Parfumo wrote a review about Ghala. That being said, I will say that this is a traditional rose oud scent. So for all of the humbug about individuality and being, you know, rare and different and all of that, this is a rose oud. And I must admit, I like rose ouds. I just do. I will be the very first to raise my hand on the Fragrance Bible and admit that I am a rose oud lover. I don't think it's out of fashion. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's something that's going to always kind of be with us. Rose and oud just go well together. And this is a rose oud with an animalic, slightly barnyard aspect, though. I don't agree with the feel that some people have said it smells like feces or feces in a barn. I don't agree with that at all. I think if you have any experience with real oud, this will smell slightly animalic to you. Very so slightly. And along with the oud, even from the get-go, when the oud is its strongest, here, I'll do a fresh spray just because. Even when the oud is at its strongest, you're going to pick up things like, let me let this settle down before I stick my nose in it. Yeah, even from the beginning, I get amber right from the get-go. Amber and musk mixed with that rose and oud. And so, yes, is it barnyard in the sense that it is Indian oud? Yes, it is. But does it top the charts of most animalic oud ever? Absolutely not. I would have no problem wearing this out and about. And I can tell you that this very, I don't want to say piercing, but the animalics in the oud are obviously the strongest. You know, there's almost like a vinegar feel to the oud and animalic combination in the opening that really does tone down once you get into the base, and it starts to, you know, 3-4 hours in, you really start to feel the patchoulis and the vetivers take over, and the musks. I still get a lot of musk. Yeah, but that vinegar-like piercing lacquered wood, almost like an old wooden chest. And in the opening, every time I've tried this, and I've tried this now 3 or 4 times, they sent me a very generous decant of an expensive fragrance. I get hints of this skunky, like hemp-like flower, almost. If you've smelled Areej Dore's newest collection, there's a hemp flower in one of his creations. But almost like this weed / hemp flower, this skunkiness, if you will, this earthy cannabis hemp flower-like feel, and it gives off hints of diesel or petrol, but almost a clean diesel or petrol. So imagine if you've ever smelled Parfums Cortana's Iorfante, that jet fuel-like cleanliness. Well, that's not how I want to describe it. Almost like clean burning jet fuel, right? Don't think dirty petrol. Think jet fuel burning clean is kind of the feeling that I get. But imagine you're smelling all of this from an oud sense, okay? So this is coming, it feels like it's coming from the oud. The oud does smell real. I mean, it smells like a realistic oud note. And if you really twisted my arm, I would probably say this type of house sits in a similar stratosphere with something like Arabian oud. So if you know Arabian oud, you know that they're not cheap. But when I smell Arabian oud fragrances, I'm always kind of like, would I give Arabian oud $600 for this when there's Areej Dore's and Bortnikov's and Ensars in the world? No. I think that these type of houses are for the people who are not, or either just getting into oud, let's say, so they find the Arabian ouds and let's say the Jazeels. But I think it's good. I mean, Arabian oud had some scents that I really liked. I think my favorite Arabian oud was called Blue Oud, or I'd have to go back and look. It was something like that. I did a review. You'd find it easily. I reviewed some of their more expensive ouds, and they were good, but they feel very similar to kind of what I'm smelling in Jazeel. And now, let's talk a little bit about this Kalakasi oud. I'm actually not familiar with this note. I've never smelled Kalakasi oud on its own, but apparently Kalakasi in some languages means black or burnt. So I don't know if it's like a extra intense tree resin style oud. I don't know if that even made any sense, but imagine maybe like this black oud, if you will. Like the resin in the trunk is so dark that it's black, which of course that's usually how it comes. It comes, it turns the heartwood black. But Kalakasi oud is supposed to be extremely dark and resinous. I can't speak to that because I don't know much about Kalakasi oud. I would love to smell it in its own form. Thanks to Russian Adam, I smelled a lot of ouds: Philippine oud, Laos oud, Chinese oud, Thailand oud. I mean, all kind of different ouds. Moroccan oud, all these different types of oud. Thanks to Russian Adam, I smelled in the pure and the raw oil form, and I really enjoy just putting on pure oud. Just swiping real oud now is one of my favorite pleasures before bed. It is such a contemplative, beautiful scent. And when you get something like this in a composition, you're obviously going to get the oud, but you're going to get other facets as well. But the oud is really being presented to you here. This is a proper rose oud. The rose is beautiful, by the way. Cannot get around that. The rose is absolutely beautiful. They say that Kalakasi oud can have some fruity touches. Some people say Kalakasi oud can smell like bananas, which I must admit is a little bit strange. But if you would have presented this to me and I knew nothing about Kalakasi oud and I was making my notes, I probably would have said that the Indian rose is giving off fruity elements. That would be my guess. But just needless to say, it's a beautiful fruity rose oud smell that almost gives it this velour-like texture. And of the oud. So the oud here feels like it's well worn. You know, it feels like it's a senior citizen oud. It feels aged in a sense. Respect your oud elders, if you will. And in particular in the fashion game nowadays, there is a well-known kind of term that's being thrown around by a lot of these companies called the distressed look. People paying extra for holes in their jeans, or you know, shoes that look scuffed up or whatever. They call that the distressed look. And so this wood feels like it has some years under its belt. I mean, it does feel maybe not distressed, but it feels aged. It feels like it's lived a life a little bit. And so the wood feels like it's got some years under its belt. Now, underneath you get this creamy soft sandalwood, and what ends up happening as the hours tick by is that vinegar-like piercing sharpness of the lacquered wood with the slight animalics. Not as animalic as some people make it seem, but very well done. Quality, you can tell. As the hours tick by, it begins, of course, to soften, but even in, I think, brands like Areej Dore, I think they do use some synthetics, obviously. I don't think Russian Adam ever shied away from saying that. But in brands like Arabian Oud and now Jazeel, the synthetics in the base, what is made up of the base, feels different from when you're smelling some of these artisanal houses, right? It smells like, it starts off like you're going to smell a beautiful oud rose, high quality, and it is. I mean, $425, you should expect to smell something beautiful like this, and you do. But the dry down, kind of, like I said, it gives me Arabian Oud vibes. It's really the only way I can describe it. It's the only, Arabian Oud is the other house that I instantly made a connection to Jazeel in my mind, as far as smell of these type of fragrances go. You know, the tough comparison for this would be something like Beauty and the Beast. And the reason I say tough is because if I was going to spend $400, and I think you can just go to areejladore.com and buy Beauty and the Beast right now. You don't have to even wait. It's there still. I don't think it ever sold out yet. Or if it did, I'm sure you could find a bottle floating around for $400 or $500. If you're going to spend that kind of money, instead of giving $425 for 100 mils of this, I would rather have 50 mils or whatever it is, 53, 30 mils, whatever Beauty and the Beast bottle was in. I'd rather have that fragrance, because whereas this one, quote unquote, falls apart in the base, it doesn't really fall apart in the base. I still enjoy what it is, but it becomes much more common. The opening is beautiful. The opening is up there with a beautiful rose oud, with that lacquered wood, animalic touches, vinegar-like oud, with the hemp, skunky hemp feeling underneath, the green little touches underneath, skunky earthiness. But then it becomes more sort of generic, if you will. Not generic, but more common, if you will. And so for me, if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I would rather give it to Russian Adam and have have a fragrance like Beauty and the Beast in my collection, because Beauty and the Beast, while you don't get that oud hit right in the beginning, you get a very comparable rose, but the rose lasts for longer. It doesn't turn into the musky patchouli vetiver dry down like in Jazeel. And then the oud comes out deep into the dry down, and that's where you know you're really, to me, from my personal opinion, I would rather have Beauty and the Beast, because that dry down oud is supposed to be a heavy note that lasts for a long time. You should not smell oud for 5 minutes in the opening and then it disappears. That's not how proper oud should be smelled in a fragrance, in my opinion. A lot of these fragrance houses that you smell that type of oud in are doing it to kind of catch the person early on. I noticed that with, let's say, Bodicea, the Victorious fragrances that I smelled. The opening was marvelous. And then half an hour in, you're like, is this even the same fragrance? It just feels to kind of fall apart. And I'm not saying that Jazeel's fragrances do that, but from what I've smelled here, it definitely feels like within the first hour, 2, 3, this transitions. It really transitions away from that beautiful rose oud opening into something a little bit more common, a little bit more generic. And that's where I would rather give this, if for this kind of money, I wouldn't go to the houses like Arabian Oud or Jazeel, even though this is good. This is a solid review. I'm saying there is stiff competition in these types of waters that we're treading in right now, okay? So, so I will say that the wood feels like it has some age under it, like I said, and then you get that creamy sandalwood and muskiness underneath. And then what ends up happening, though, when you're smelling that oud, and when the oud really comes to your nose, sometimes in the dry down I get much more musks and patchouli, but when the oud comes to your nose, it starts to feel leathery and it starts to feel tobacco-like, almost hay-like in smell, like a dry, crispy hay, tobacco-like thing. So just imagine the man sitting in the expensive leather chair. I mean, this is not an expensive leather chair, but just imagine if it was a heavy, expensive leather chair that the man is sitting in with his cigar or whatever it is, right? But imagine like the oud version of that. That's the best way I can describe it. Imagine like the oud version of the well-known trope of the man sitting in the leather chair with an expensive cigar. You smell the leather, you smell the tobacco, if you will. Maybe he hasn't lit it yet. He's just chewing on it. And just sitting in the leather chair in the main hall. And he just looks regal. He's sitting there. He fits in beautifully with that atmosphere. And those notes of the dry hay and the tobacco start to come out. But just imagine the oud version of that image. So, like I said, as the hours tick by, more musk, more patchouli ends up coming out. And that beautiful resinous, thick oud just doesn't hit like I would expect from a $425 fragrance into the dry down. The opening is beautiful. It shocked me how beautiful it was the very first time I smelled it. But I really wanted to get to know the dry down before I did this review. And even though this is only 2 or 3 hours old, I have worn this to bed previously. So this is probably the 3rd or 4th time I've had a chance to wear this from memory. And I like it, but no way would I spend $425 on it. You know, if you are somebody who is in the market for a rose oud and you can find this heavily discounted, there's nothing wrong with it. It's very good. I think this is in the same range as Arabian Ouds. What was the one that I reviewed that I really liked, but it was extremely expensive? Oh man, let me go to their fragrances. How do I sort by expensive? God, they have 17 pages of fragrances. My God. Okay, let me change the price. Let's see. Let's do 500 to 1300. Royal Oud, maybe? Okay, yeah, so Royal Oud was the really expensive one. In the dry down, this gives me vibes of Royal Oud, but that was a $700 fragrance. So this is $425. It gives me vibes of Royal Oud. But I liked Blue Oud better. I think Blue Oud from Arabian Oud gave me more of the animalic bit in the opening, which I really liked. And I would say the opening of this is closer to the animalic side of Blue Oud, which I really enjoyed. But the dry down is closer to Royal Oud, if that makes sense. But I think both of these brands are overpriced from what I'm smelling. It's just the problem is with that kind of money, you're spending a lot of money. And I would rather go to the true artisanal houses, in my opinion, what I would consider the true artisanal houses. I'm sure they would consider themselves artisanal houses, but from what I'm smelling from the Arabian Oud and the Jazeels, I could not put them up there with the Areej, the Dores, the Bortnikovs. They're not there. I think, and it's hard to even say it's a good first stepping stone, because I would feel like if somebody who was just getting into Rose Ouds wanted to spend $425, I couldn't recommend spending it on an Arabian Oud or Jazeel fragrance from smell. But is it good? Like, if you don't have any Rose Ouds and this was your Rose Oud, is it good? Yes, absolutely. I think this is very good. I think this is, it's really well done. I just think they're in tough waters for what they're trying to do with this fragrance. They have a lot of competition that I just think does it much better. I just got a little bit of like a coffee hit there. Yeah, I got a little bit of like a coffee oud, tobacco, leather. Very beautiful, beautiful fragrance. I don't feel like I'm giving it enough credit for how good I think it smells. But, you know, the cold side of my brain, the very mechanical cold side, is instantly going to say, well, why don't you just buy something like Beauty and the Beast, or try to hunt down a vintage bottle of Malik Al Taif or something like that. That's so superior to me from what I'm smelling here. Even though this is head and shoulders above the Manceras and the Montals and the Latafas and all that stuff that try to do these Rose Ouds, even though this is head and shoulders above that, it still is just not on the same plane as the proper artisanal houses that I've done many, many reviews on the channel on. But again, for my channel to be a proper encyclopedia, you're going to have some of these. So if you have an experience with the House of Jazeel, I would love to hear your thoughts. I would also love to smell more from this house. I am intrigued. Their tacky gold-looking bottle, irregardless of the tacky gold-looking bottle, I am intrigued. I would like to smell what else this house has done. I'm interested in seeing what else is going on. They only have 8 fragrances or so, 8 or 9 fragrances. So I would like to see what else this guy has done. So they're on the to sniff list. But thank you to my perfume god person. If you have experience with the House of Jazeel or Ghala in particular, leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching the Late Night Insight as always. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.